Best case scenario for Matt Campbell in year one at Penn State, and I don't think it's that crazy. They could make the college football playoff.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State football, and thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcasting network out there. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host, as always, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So we got a double crossover feature here, as I'm going to cross it over with Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans, Locked On Michigan State, to compare and contrast who made the better hire, Penn State with Matt Campbell or Michigan State with Pat Fitzgerald, and why both programs will actually benefit a ton from the hires. So we'll talk about that in segments 2 and 3. But to begin the show, I went over and joined Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football to talk about what the expectations should be for Penn State in year one under Matt Campbell. College football playoff, do they happen to sneak in? This team will shatter expectations from the general public next season. I can guarantee you that. So here's my interview. Here's my conversation with Spencer McLaughlin over on Locked On College Football to discuss just that.
Seyko, you've got a coach there in Happy Valley. Matt Campbell is the head coach at Penn State, an 8-year deal. Boy, it better work out. How quickly could Penn State reinsert themselves into all of this madness and have wonderful debates had about them as to whether they get to play for a national championship or not?
I mean, next season, immediately right out of the gate, you have a very the transfer portal and a good coach, the transfer portal, and a favorable schedule. Spencer, you're going to look up the schedule and you're going to be like, holy smokes, there's no way that this team is anything but 10-2 at that point. USC and Michigan are the hardest teams on that 2026 schedule. But I love the hire for obvious reasons, especially with where the search was trending. Penn State did not settle by any means, and they're opening up the war chest to give Matt Campbell everything they can, every amount of leverage they can to get him started. They retain key assistants so far. He's bringing over others from Iowa State. There is reasonable expectation that Penn State can be 10-2. Who knows, right? But I'm not predicting it right now because we don't know how the roster is going to look, right? But there is a possibility to where they get this roster in a solid spot. I mean, he needs $30 million in NIL to go build a roster. That's not chump change. So you can, Matt Campbell is very well liked. I want to see him to be able to recruit with the necessary resources in this area, in this arena, I should say. That's what I meant to say. In this space when we have NIL in the transfer portal. So Penn State can get right back into it as soon as next year.
You seem overall excited. And look, I think Matt Campbell is the best hire at this point in the cycle that you could have possibly made. Now, the last time this coaching search was discussed on this very program, and many others, quite frankly, it was framed in the context of, this is embarrassing, this is bad, this is a disaster. Pat Kraft is having audio leaked from various conversations, whether that's real or not. I haven't verified any of that, but it was all looking really, really bad. And then all of a sudden you hire a guy that is the best coach in the history of Iowa State football, who just won consistently for 10 years at a place where nobody had really won at a consistent rate before. Now he's going to a place where Penn State's done almost nothing but win for the last 20 years. They just haven't won the big game. As we know, that's what got James Franklin fired. And it's crazy how thin the margins really were. Penn State twice was one play from beating Oregon. And if one of those plays goes in their favor, boy, we're having a different conversation. We aren't having this exact conversation right now. So, by the way, you mentioned the schedule. No Oregon, no Oregon, no Ohio State, no Indiana on the schedule for Penn State next year, and a non-conference of cupcakes against Marshall, at Temple, and then against Buffalo as well. So I see your point. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it feels like there's such a big cultural reset required. Is Matt Campbell the guy to say, forget that past era, this is a brand new world, I'm going to, I hate using this comparison, but just kind of follow the general theme, I'm going to Curt Cignetti this and catapult you right back to the top?
I mean, why can't that be the expectation? Again, until the roster is finalized, I'm not going to make any predictions, but it's on the table. That's at least an option. It's not sit well, they might go 6-6 or they could be under 500. Let's just hope they're getting to a bowl game because of the schedule, because of the randomness of the transfer portal. You don't know who's going to leave. You don't also know who's going to join Penn State. And you don't know who's going to enter the portal just overall. Penn State might have a position of need. The transfer portal gets an influx of talent at that specific position, and then you're pretty much set up for success right out of the gate, again, especially with an easier schedule. And it's not even the non-conference for me. It's the fact that they avoid Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. Washington should be a challenge, right? USC is supposed to be better. That's at least their expectation. Michigan should be better. That's year two of Bryce Underwood. So I'm not predicting that they're gonna swamp all of those teams, but it's at least a possibility where I am more optimistic for the immediate future than I am pessimistic.
If this goes poorly, just bear with me here. Number one, what does that look like? What is a bad year one under Matt Campbell? And number two, with an 8-year contract, what sort of leash does he have? Because when the coaching carousel went like this and the musical chairs went around, it looked like you're going to get left at the altar there without a place to sit. And you wind up with Matt Campbell, who I think some folks would have had inside a hot list of top 5 to 10 candidates when this coaching search began all the way back in October and has now finished itself up here in December. What is success in year one with the schedule? But what is a bad first year for Matt Campbell looking like?
500 or thereabouts, 6-6, 5-7. I will give a little bit of grace. Again, it's really ultimately dependent on the roster. If he has some trouble recruiting, right? This is his first year at Penn State. He's going to retain some key assistants that are still even to be determined at this point. Who's the OC? Who's the DC? What other key position coaches are you going to have? Once it's finalized, then I'll have a better understanding, of course. But if you do put together a B+ type of roster and coaching staff, and you go 6-6 in a schedule that is extremely favorable, no Ohio State, no Oregon, no Indiana, Michigan and USC are those big games with possibly Washington as well. Say you should win all the other ones guaranteed, except for those 3. So 9-3, if you go 8-4 and you lose a game, it's like circumstantial. Okay, so be it. But 6-6, where you're struggling with the below mid-tier opponents, that's an unsuccessful first season. But if you're able to take the transfer portal by storm, start working some of the recruiting connections, build some relationships in the state of Pennsylvania, and you go 9-3, even if you don't make the college football playoff, I'm very content with that as a first season.
Zach Seyko, Locked On Nittany Lions. Great, as always.
Still to come on this episode of Locked On Nittany Lions, we're now going to cross it over with Locked On Spartans and host Matt Sheehan to debate who made the better hire, Penn State with Matt Campbell or Michigan State with Pat Fitzgerald. That's coming up next here on the show. And this episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure it out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. You can give this gift to anybody, grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anybody who loves photos, which is just about everybody, right? You have endless uploads of pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app, and you can add personalized messages right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's open. And packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed. That's a huge win, especially when you're busy during the holidays. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames. Named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com. auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays and support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Nittany Lions with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. All you got to do is go to lockedonnittanylions.supercast.com. That's lockedonnittanylions.supercast.com, or check the link in the show notes to learn more.
That's right. Locked On crossover time. What's up, everyone? Matt Sheehan over at Locked On Spartans. Over there, that strapping gentleman, that is Zach Seyko, if I could say his name the first time correctly, over there at Locked On Nittany Lions. Now, Zach, dude, what's up, man? We're kind of hanging out in the same neighborhood of both hiring coaches that at their previous stops have done more with less. Over here, Pat Fitzgerald, routinely bringing in recruiting classes that are normally in the 50s. Over there, you guys bring in Matt Campbell. Well, I would say he'd done pretty well for himself over at Iowa State after bringing in recruiting classes also normally ranked in the 50s. Zach, is this a situation where, like, if I like my hire, I'm forced to also like your hire as well, because it's kind of the same theory of hiring here? Are we in the same boat right now, Zach?
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I like the Pat Fitzgerald hire a ton because it elevates the floor of Michigan State. Like this is a program, especially now, money helps, right? The donation certainly helps, but Fitzgerald elevates that floor. You get the commitment to just help the program overall. I mean, this can be an 8-4 team year in and year out, and then kind of peaks at 10-2, gets into the playoff, every so often within a cycle. Penn State not trying to do that, but it's kind of a similar case where they want to be able to elevate their floor to where they're not losing to the elite teams year in and year out. Okay. So it's not only about, yes, this is a national title. This was framed as a national title winning job. We want to win national titles. However, it also got exhausting losing to Ohio State and Michigan, Ohio State and Michigan, Ohio State and somebody else. Pick a team, Minnesota, Michigan State. Pick somebody. We knew how the story ended every single time. And so it wasn't, well, James Franklin won a lot of games, but he never, and I mean literally never, won the games that were truly consequential. They would get to the dance, but then they would be turned away every single time. And then that was the issue. So just insert a team: Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota, Michigan State, Indiana, Notre Dame in the playoff, right? You won all the games you were supposed to, but you never won the games you were not supposed to. So Matt Campbell, being an X's and O's guy, being a football coach first and foremost, rather than a CEO kind of coach, because that's all handled. Penn State can handle all that behind the scenes stuff. Get somebody that has a great on the field product and let Penn State handle the off the field product. That's the direction that Penn State wants to go in.
Were you pretty satisfied with how everything, shook out for Penn State? Obviously, you guys fired James Franklin very early in the season. In theory, that gets you a head start on the coaching hire, but Matt Campbell was one of the last guys to go off the board. Now, that's for the first coaching cycle. Obviously, with this whole Michigan fallout, there's going to be a second wave here, but you get my point. Are you pretty satisfied with how things shook out in eventually bringing in Matt Campbell?
Yeah, Penn State essentially kind of tripped and fell into success here because this was looking like a disaster. Unless behind the scenes there was something that we didn't know. That it really was, because we didn't know that it was Kalani Sitake. There were probably some insiders that had caught word of it, but generally speaking, nobody was mentioning Sitake on message boards, just generally on social media in terms of discussions, because it's like, why would he leave BYU? And you're right. Why would he leave BYU? Because we saw how that would unfold. But I do wonder to an extent if Campbell was the number 2 candidate, and kind of the same thing. Sitake was a mystery candidate. Campbell may have also been a mystery candidate. The way it's perceived, though, is that Penn State swung and missed on everybody. Mike Elko or Marcus Freeman, they made phone calls, but there was never a negotiation period. So it's kind of to each their own with how they interpret it, because it's not like Penn State was pursuing Mike Elko for days and days and days and days. They probably had a couple of phone calls. There was some reciprocated interest, and then eventually it was a no. They weren't at the negotiating table like they were with Satake and Campbell. So Penn State thinks they did a great job because they ended up with the right candidate. Other people are going to say this is the worst search in history and Penn State got lucky. Honestly, both arguments are true.
What do you think is going to be success by the time our two teams meet again, which, by the way, is 2027? We're taking a break from each other this year, Zach. So what has to happen in 2026 for both of our teams to go into 2027 saying, hey, this first year under our new guys was a success? Because, look, whether State fans and Michigan State fans, want to hear this or not, I think this is a pretty different picture of what we're looking at. Penn State, just with the talent you already have on the roster, probably more like 10-win season ready than a Michigan State is, whereas I'm not just, waving the white flag in defeat saying that, 6 wins is going to be our goal, but I think year one under Pat Fitzgerald is just find some stability amidst all the turbulence that has happened. At least show that you can win close games, beat the teams that you should be able to beat, hold on to a fourth quarter lead. I'd give that a try, which we haven't done in quite some time.
Seems realistic. Yeah, seems reasonable.
Do I ask for a lot, Zach? I don't think so, but I would like to hold on to my leads and actually, see some clock management by a coach. Anyway, I digress. We're here to talk about the future, not the past. I think for Michigan State, look, year one, 7 wins, 8 wins, whatever you want to call it, just at least show an identity is being brought back to East Lansing that we haven't seen since, 2019, it feels like. But what about for you guys? Like, what do you have to see in 2026 under Matt Campbell for you to say, okay, I could already tell things are going in the right direction here?
It's winning one of the games that you're not supposed to.
Sure.
So win a big game, upset a team that you're not necessarily favored against. Penn State's schedule is actually pretty favorable. I'm not here to say right now that, I guarantee a college football playoff berth, but I'm not disagreeable to the idea either. But that can be the expectation. And then if they go 8-4, if they go 9-3, okay, it's year one. I will let it slide as long as I do see, hey, you defeated USC at home in prime time. All right, that is a major step forward because Penn State routinely loses that game for the better part of a decade, right? You don't need a lucky miracle field goal block in order to win that. You actually beat them on the gridiron because you were the better team. You were the better coached team. So if they can win a game that they're not supposed to, if they can somehow find their way into the college football playoff, that's an insane success, but it's also a possibility. Okay, when we talk about Michigan State, it would be, I guess it would be otherworldly if they were to get into the college football playoff or even talk about it next year. For Penn State, I don't think that's that unrealistic.
I just want to be in the graphic on the college football playoff show to start November. That's all I want. Zach, I want to talk about meaningful football games in the month of November for the first time since 2021. Not to be greedy, not to be picky. I just would love to have a fan base that actually cares about football going into November. And who's to say that it can't happen? It's not the hardest schedule. It's certainly not the easiest schedule, especially when you open up your season as one of your non-conference games at Notre Dame, who I think might have a chip on their shoulder going into next season, but whatever. You know what? Can you get to the bowl game? Yes. But can you look competent? Can you actually have offensive line play be strong in year number one under Pat Fitzgerald? And that alone would be enough to send me over the moon and think, yes, we found our staff. We found our guy.
You want it to be fun. You want it to be worthwhile to talk about.
To have fun. I want to see a team be able to run the ball. I want to have a play action game that actually works because you do have to respect Michigan State's run game. I just have to see some stability here in year one under Pat Fitzgerald. Speaking of what else I have to see, and this is going to go for both of us here, I want to see recruiting get a little better. Michigan State came in, I believe, at the number 46 ranked class.
It should.
Because it kind of also can't get much worse than what it has been the last few years, especially, look, this donation Michigan State got, we've raised the floor for our resources. Pat Fitzgerald, a lot of recruits seem to like him. Can you get in the top 30 in year one under Pat Fitzgerald? Sure, you possibly can. But I just have a question about Penn State recruiting, not so much under Matt Campbell right now, but I couldn't help to notice you guys have 2 recruits signed for 2026. And naturally, from the outside looking in, my eyeballs pop out of my head like a cartoon dog. I'm like, what?
Still to come on this episode, more implications from Michigan State hiring Pat Fitzgerald, Penn State hiring Matt Campbell, the domino effect that it has now created in recruiting, in the landscape of college football and the Big Ten. That is coming up next here on this episode. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. And you can bet on the NFL. You can also bet on college football. Lines are available for Penn State versus Clemson in this upcoming bowl game. We have a little bit of line movement. Penn State is now a 4.5-point underdog. They were 3.5-point underdogs. Now they're 4.5-point underdogs, plus 155 on the money line. If you're thinking Penn State for the upset, Clemson minus 188. The total is still set at 48.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. And if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. That's FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you.
What's going on here? But Zach, is that actually anything worth panicking about for Penn State that you guys only brought in 2 commits? Or is this the new day and age in college football? You got the portal coming up. This is just not even going to be a bump in the road for you guys. Help paint this picture for me, Zach.
It's fun for the outsiders or for people that don't like Penn State or dismiss Penn State to dunk on them. That's all it is.
Yeah. Which I have done. But I don't even mind Penn State. It's just like, holy smokes, they're behind Western Georgia Tech in the recruiting rankings. What the? I need to talk to Zach soon and get an idea of what's going on here.
But in the scheme of things, it doesn't matter because of the transfer portal. This would be Penn State would be in dire straits if you didn't have the transfer portal, and simply put. And I think they're right now with Penn State transitioning from James Franklin to Matt Campbell, there is more value in attacking the portal and getting redshirt sophomores, redshirt juniors, veteran players, guys that have been playing college ball for 2-3 years over a high school senior that has no experience. That has the only, and with Penn State's class of 2026, but that was a really good class. That's something you could build upon. So be it. But Penn State needs to have a semblance of a team now. Okay. And there were only 2 players in that class that would have given you competitive snaps. Everybody else was a developmental, long-term caliber player that their best days of football are when they are the redshirt sophomores, the redshirt juniors. There were only 2 players that could start from day one, especially if the opportunity presented itself. That's Jasir Rogers, who's committed to Oklahoma, and that's Kevin Brown, who's committed to West Virginia. Everybody else, special teams guy, again, year 3, year 4, that's probably when they're going to hit their peak and really hit their stride. So for Penn State, the transfer portal is going to help them out because it might even benefit them. I've already made the comparison because I think it's fair. If Penn State does this well, if Matt Campbell attacks the transfer portal well and keeps some of the better pieces that are already at Penn State, you could be this year's Indiana. Not in terms of, or I guess the way that Kurt Cignetti started things, where Indiana went from, kind of the laughing stock of the Big Ten, which is what Penn State was for the most part this season, firing a coach in the middle of the year and not winning any games at all, losing to UCLA and Northwestern for the first half of the season. But then you get a coach that stabilizes everything. You use the portal effectively. You sneak into the college football playoff when nobody expects you to. First round, early exit. Okay, that's understandable. But hey, you performed above the general expectations. And then year 2, you take off and put yourself back into the title mix. It's certainly a possibility. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's on the table. And that's what Penn State has the opportunity to do here. So the recruiting class, and they're going to have more commits. Iowa State kids are decommitting. There's players that Penn State is connected to that either haven't signed or are interested in flipping already. So Penn State's class of 2026 could go from 2 players to maybe a dozen, which and then everyone's just wasting their time talking about it right now. It doesn't matter.
And one of those kids actually is a verbal commit to Michigan State right now, 4-star receiver Samson Gash, which I'd be a little surprised to see him sign. But I would also say that I would have been surprised to see 4-star offensive tackle Colin Campbell sign with Michigan State. And what did he do? He did just that. So it's far from over. But yeah, I just couldn't help to notice too. But the portal does come up, and I just got to know, how many pieces away do you think Penn State is in the portal? Because over here in East Lansing, hey, this is awesome. We got more NIL. We've raised the floor. We've got money to spend now. But you know what else we have, Zach? We got a long list of positions that we need filled. We need receivers. We need offensive linemen. We could use another running back probably. We need a defensive line. We need linebackers. We need cornerbacks. We need safeties. So, hey, look, it's cool to have a big budget. But when you've got a long list of positions, that money's going to get spread a little thin here. That's why I got a hard time thinking that Pat Fitzgerald can just go 11-1 in his first year. But what about Penn State? Is it kind of a tighter list of positions of need here?
Depends who stays, depends who goes, right?
Yeah.
If there is truly a filter that's going to go from Penn State to Virginia Tech, like a lot of Virginia Tech people are saying, a lot of pessimists that follow Penn State are saying, then okay, then that's the reality of it. You just dive deeper into the transfer portal. But I would like Penn State to keep Ethan Grunkemeyer, so then quarterback's taken care of. If I had to say, based on kind of gut feeling or the caliber of player that's just at this respective position group, running back's probably going to be a need for Penn State. You're losing Singleton and Allen. You're also probably going to lose a number of players in the transfer portal. That running back depth chart is going to look completely different. So running back would be a need. Potentially offensive line, but again, that's dependent on who's going to stay, who's going to go. The ones that I can guarantee: running back, defensive line, linebacker, secondary. We're already seeing some names going to the portal for Penn State. Elliot Washington, before we hit record here, actually announced his decision to enter the transfer portal. But Iowa State has a lot of defensive backs. So I'm kind of anticipating whatever you lose, Penn State's just going to recover by bringing over former Iowa State players. So the biggest priorities for Penn State, to summarize: running back, defensive line, linebacker, because there's so much uncertainty there. There's still possibilities that quarterback will be fine, offensive line will be fine, tight end will be fine, to where it's not you're scrambling and we got to go get somebody. We got to find somebody. Those are the ones where I know guys are gone.
Right. I got one more football question, if you could humor me with this. And at the time of recording, there is no offensive coordinator hired yet under Pat Fitzgerald. Now, in true Locked On Spartans fashion, this means that by the time this gets released, there will have been an offensive coordinator
Same with
hired,
Penn State.
because we jinx everything under the sun. But hey, speaking of Penn State's offensive coordinator situation, I threw out the name Andy Kotelnicki the other day, who obviously has been Penn State's offensive coordinator for 2 seasons. Would you recommend him to be an offensive coordinator at, let's say, a nice little college here in East Lansing, or were you just so fed up with what you've seen the last 2 years, you're saying buyer beware with this guy?
I like it a ton. I think Andy Kotelnicki gets a little bit of a bad rap. I think it was a product of the system this year with James Franklin not intervening at all. He basically you even saw it through the first games. They weren't the things. People were criticizing and saying, "Oh, Penn State media are people that are hyping up the wins over Nebraska and Michigan State. It doesn't matter, right? Those were bad teams in the Big Ten." Let me remind you, they weren't doing those things against Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. Once a head coach settled Andy Kotelnicki and Jim Knowles down, you actually saw the product start to improve. So it's the fact that James Franklin just neglected all of it. Once Terry Smith, the interim, said, "We're changing this, we're doing this," Knowles and Kotelnicki both settled in as play callers down the stretch of the season. So I'm not against Penn State keeping Andy Kotelnicki. I think it can work. He is a run first type of coordinator, so that's what you're getting. He had a top 10 rushing offense at Kansas for multiple years. Penn State's offense overall was top 15. You don't just go and forget how to coach football or call plays in 1 year's time. I do think it was a product of the situation that Penn State was just not. nobody was doing well. The only person that was doing well up until the later part of the season was Katron Allen. Everybody else had taken a step backwards. So Andy Kotelnicki, product of a failing system under James Franklin until it was actually addressed, would be a phenomenal hire for Michigan State. I'm not opposed to Penn State keeping him, but he might just be like, I want out of here. The fans are mean. Sure. The fans are disrespectful. I'm not a Pennsylvania guy. He's from Minnesota originally, so maybe that, kind of puts him closer to home and everything. Be a great hire for Sparty, in my opinion.
Let's both smile to end the show. I got one more. I got one more in me. We're not Michigan, right? I mean, certainly the headlines are going better for us right now than what's going on.
That's going to be great for Michigan State. I think Penn State will benefit from some mutual recruiting, but honestly, if Michigan turns the page significantly, where it's someone that's totally an outsider, has no connections to Michigan State needs to capitalize on that ASAP.
Big time.
And do not hesitate, because the reason Michigan is in such a better place with where it was with Jim Harbaugh and then to start with Sharon Moore is because Michigan State wasn't offering any resistance. Mel Tucker, Jonathan Smith, they had no chance. You don't have to dominate the state of Michigan, but the school that is getting 60% of the recruits is going to be miles ahead of the other school. So why Jim Harbaugh was struggling originally was because Mark D'Antoni was doing phenomenal, or at least enough to keep Michigan from running away with the entire state.
So, D'Antonio, I know some Spartan guys are going to jump on you for that, which hey, Zach didn't mean any ill will for that one. No, guys, take it easy on Zach. We already beat him up with 10 minutes of basketball talk.
I confuse him with the basketball coach. Yeah, D'Antonio. He's on the playoff board.
Yeah. I got a Sports Illustrated copy over here somewhere that has him written down as Mike D'Antonio on the cover. It's one of my favorite items that I have. So everyone gets it wrong. All right, guys. Hey, over here, Matt Sheehan, Locked On Spartans. Next time you hear from me will be after this basketball game. Over there, Zach Seyko. If you need more of him, which how could you not? Zach's great people over there, Locked On Nittany Lions. But guys, until next time, take care of yourselves. Go green, and hey, let's hit you guys with a "We Are." Let's go.